Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, Principal Atmospheric Scientist at Nutrient Ag Solutions, and I want to thank you for watching this weekly Ag Weather Update brought to you by the Farm Credit Associations of North Carolina. Well, as we begin the month of May here, we start thinking more about what the upcoming hurricane season is going to look like. So just a reminder of some of the statistics about hurricanes in North Carolina. In terms of where they make landfall in the United States, North Carolina's coast here has the smallest return time period for hurricanes, which means that compared to everywhere else along our East Coast and Gulf Coast, North Carolina has the most frequent landfalling tropical systems. That outpaces the southern tip of Florida, also Louisiana. So we need to be taking another look at what's coming together to potentially make this an active hurricane season. So I'd like to show you some latest research done by Penn State University, great university here in terms of graduate level research in atmospheric sciences. Their seasonal prediction group right now is looking out right here at the potential for this being a season that has 20 named systems. So that would be well above average. This would indicate to us that conditions are coming together to make this a very active season, and they've labeled down here several of the things we've been talking about. So let's take a look at the most recent conditions. Ocean temperature anomalies here. Notice the cool water right in through here. We've had a discussion that with stronger trade winds, allowing for some upwelling of some cooler water, we may allow the Pacific Ocean to slide into La Nina-like behavior by the time we get to the middle or end of summer. Combine that with the fact that right now in the western Atlantic basin we have much above average temperatures, and that includes the Caribbean and Gulf of Mexico, but much above average ocean temperatures tells us that early in this season we're already priming this part of the world for better heat transfer out of the ocean. Now, to come back to the Pacific and make a better story out of it, I want you to watch the animation that's over here on the right. What you've got here on the top of this figure is South America, and over here, Australia. And so going from the top of that image, from the right to the left, that would be basically going across the central equatorial Pacific. Now you notice here the cooler water that's highlighted here in the blue colors that stretches in through this area. We've been watching since February this cool tongue of water begin to slowly emerge here over towards South America. And if those trade winds are strong and the trade winds blow in that direction, we can take that cooler water and begin to spread it not only over South America, just off the west coast of South America, back in the central Pacific. And if that happens and those trade winds stay strong, we have what's called a La Nina. Now, the current model estimates show that by the time we get into our hurricane season, which really starts, it gets going really in July, but July through November, during that time period, several of our model simulations are suggesting that we will be seeing weak La Nina conditions at that time period. So what does that mean? Lower wind shear, and with the warmer ocean temperatures over the May development region for hurricanes, we could be on the lookout for a very active season. To finish this discussion here about hurricanes, I just want to show you some latest model runs by the CANSIPS model. This is looking out for August, September, and October at precipitation anomalies. So you can see the wetter than average conditions coming off of Africa, getting into the Gulf of Mexico, and then running just like this on the Gulf Stream. And what we tend to see when the models are advertising wetter than average conditions, they're talking about better heat and moisture transfer out of the ocean. And with less wind shear, this really increases the probability of hurricanes. So we just want to keep this idea in the back of our minds moving forward. Please remember this: it just takes one system to cause so many problems. And also remember this: we can have an extremely active hurricane season with 20 plus named systems, but they can all miss North Carolina as well. So that's why we just talk about the ingredients and we get prepared for what could be a very active season. In the near term, though, that's not going to be the main discussion. The main discussion in the near term is going to be these two maps. GFS on the left, European on the right, looking through this week at what our temperatures are going to be compared to normal. As we go through the week, the temperatures will be getting colder and colder. By the time we get to the weekend, that'll be the true depth of the cold. So May 8th through the 13th, really at the beginning of that time period, we might see temperatures in North Carolina that are 10 to 15 degrees below average. And this does start to begin the discussion on our worry about frost threat. I hate to say that. I mean, it's May, but we have to have that discussion. So let's talk about it. This first map here shows you Tuesday's minimum temperatures. So let's just get right to tomorrow and take a look at what we think the minimum temperatures are going to be and watch throughout the rest of this week. So as we go from Tuesday into Wednesday and then into Thursday, watch toward the end of the week where we start seeing routine temperatures in the overnight hours getting down into the 40s. This is now Friday morning. This is going to be Saturday morning. And on Sunday morning, this is the morning I'm most concerned about. What we see here once again are temperatures getting down into the middle to upper 30s, and we therefore know that at low elevations, when you get out into the Piedmont and the coastal plain, or in the higher elevations where you have the dips in the valleys, we have the chance here for getting a frost. So this is substantial. And by the way, just to talk about outside of North Carolina, this is going to hit a part of the Corn Belt that is normally past its first frost date as well, especially the eastern Corn Belt, and it's certainly not what we need to get for this crop that's emerging right now in the primary part of the Corn Belt. So what does that frost risk look like? Well, this is Saturday morning, May 9th, and this is Sunday morning, May 10th. And so while right now the ensembles are keeping the coldest temperatures in the mountains, just to keep an eye out for some low-lying areas out in the plains here where we could be seeing some temperatures getting very close to freezing. So I'm going to keep an eye on it, and we'll report back next week to see if we got there. Now, for the Northeast, they are actually going to be talking about snow. That map on the right is the probability of getting an inch of snow. So just notice how some of that does come right down the spine of the Appalachian Mountains here. So there might be a dusting that we have to be contending with here with the colder temperatures coming through. So it's just crazy to be talking about frost and snow for the middle part of the month of May. What's got this all going is really this block right here. I'll put an X in it. It's sitting right over the Arctic. That high pressure cell that you're sitting there is reflected in the upper levels of the atmosphere with a large ridge. And it's allowing for the pattern to become amplified with a deep trough off the west coast and a deep trough off the east coast. And the trough that you see here on the east coast will be close to record setting. So we're going to watch this one very carefully. We have noticed in the last few model runs some moderation though. So as we get out here past the 9th, 10th, and 11th, I'm talking about the 12th now, we can see that the models in the last couple of runs have been increasing the heights here, which means the trough is getting weaker. But at the same time that's happening, the trough that's here off the west coast has been getting deeper. And my concern is with the deepening of the trough off of the west coast, what that means in terms of a more active weather pattern across much of the United States as we move into the middle and end of the month of May. Because by May 14th through the 19th, we now see that the European model returns us back toward normal temperatures across the Carolinas. The GFS tries to hang on to the slight cooler bias, but it's a little bit slower with moving this trough out of place. And so that's what you see here. By the time we get to May 14th, look at the ridging starting to return here. Now with that ridging, yes, the warmer temperatures, but overall just follow the flow of the atmosphere. You see it's doing something a bit like this. And therefore with the warmth returning, this is going to inject quite a bit of warm, moist, unstable air here. And with southwest flow, this tends to create lots of low pressure systems that run up right through the midsection of the country. And so therefore in the Carolinas with the return of heat, this is going to increase our thunderstorm activity and potentially some of the storms could be severe. We are also now moving, now that we're in May and June, over to the time period of the year where we tend to get lots of squall lines that come through the Carolinas. So we got to keep a close eye on that. Now, I've never shown you this before, but I'm going to start showing it because it's kind of an interesting way of looking at things. This matrix of colors here, look for the warm colors. That would indicate where there's been a higher frequency, historically, given the pattern that's coming, a higher frequency of severe weather across the whole of the United States. And what we notice is that once we get past the 14th, which is here on this diagram, look at the very top row, you can see these redder or darker red colors. That tells us that the atmosphere is becoming more conducive with the southwest trough and then southwest to northwest flow across the United States to increase our severe weather chances as we finish the month of May and get into the month of June here. All right, to get there though, we got to change this flow pattern. This is how things look on May the 8th. And we can see, not May 8th, May 4th today. And what we're going to watch this week, which is going to increase our chances of rain on early this week over in the Carolinas, really on Tuesday, is the trough that I just put a line through there. By the time we get to the end of the week, though, look at what the flow pattern is going to look like on May 8th. It is highly amplified, very meridional. That means north-south flowing in the Pacific. And this ridge really builds up here along the west coast while the deeper trough becomes established. And that is when our coldest air will be moving into place. Okay, so in terms of severe weather, what are we watching? Well, today it's going to be back here in the Central Plains, and there's a major risk for hail there. But as we work our way into day 2, which is going to be on the 5th, we're going to watch these storms move over here toward the Carolinas, and as they get up against the Appalachian Mountains, maybe increasing the severe weather threat there. So let's watch these storms come through here. We're just going to play this out. This will take us all the way out into Wednesday, middle of the day here. And we're going to be able to see these systems move across. So when's our next chance at precipitation? Well, early this morning, before you saw this video, it was raining right there along kind of the northeast coast of North Carolina. We then get through much of the rest of the day on Monday with just some scattered clouds, but nothing really to deal with in terms of precipitation. It'll be late Monday night, this is now early Tuesday morning, that we're going to watch that system pull through the central and eastern Corn Belt and early in the morning increase our precipitation chances across North Carolina. That's going to last through the mid-morning hours and actually through much of the day tomorrow, on Tuesday, until that system finally starts to wrap itself out deeper here in the kind of the sitting between the Great Lakes and Maine. And during that time period, maybe we're certainly going to get the cloud cover, but some light scattered precipitation through early Wednesday morning. So that's what we're dealing with through the beginning of this week. Let's now take a look at what might be coming after that. So let's play the European model through where we've already seen it, which is Wednesday morning. So again, that's the lightly scattered precip we could be seeing throughout the day on Wednesday, just in this general vicinity of the mid-Atlantic. Now from this point on, what we're going to watch is this. High pressure cell moves in by Thursday morning, Thursday afternoon, and evening, drying us out, but this is what's bringing in the cold weather. Now as we get into Friday morning, so we go to the second half of this week relatively dry, but Friday morning we have one high pressure cell here and a second one sitting here just north of North Dakota. And what that's going to do is sandwich in between it a front, such that by Friday afternoon, getting into Friday evening, now Saturday morning, that's when some precipitation is going to be pulling through before this big high pressure cell comes in and sits right over the top of North Carolina on Sunday. Now my concern, like I said, was for the coldest air to be on Sunday. With the high pressure cell, this is going to be dry conditions, clear skies, light winds. That is the perfect combination for strong radiational cooling, and that's really going to drop the temperatures off in this area. So we're going to have to watch this very, very carefully. What about week 2? Well, first, week 1 total accumulated precipitation. With the 2 rounds that we have coming in between now and next Monday morning, the chances in here of picking up anywhere between a half an inch and up to an inch of rainfall do exist. So that's the range over which we are looking. Could be locally heavier with some of the thunderstorms that could possibly move through. But broadening this out, just looking at the next week here from the European model, now we got this full screen view, we can see that we are outside of the North Carolina bringing in some rainfall in through this area, which is a region that's been rapidly planting and actually needs a little bit of precipitation. So something to keep an eye on here if you're a corn and soybean farmer in North Carolina. Meanwhile, other areas I want you to watch. This region has been very dry and is forecast to stay dry. And there's some concern in the Central Plains that could spread throughout the early part of the growing season, creating risk later on in the year for big-time summer heat in the midsection of the country. Okay, from there, now let's talk week 2. So this gets us all the way out to May 18th, all right, really the evening of the 17th. When we get rid of that trough, and it finally moves off the coast, European on the right, GFS on the left again, that will allow for flow to start to come back from the southwest. And you can see that both models are kind of opening a corridor here in the midsection of the country for more active weather. While this does tend to paint a drier picture in overall for North Carolina, remember, to be dry in May still means you have a lot of thunderstorm activity. I'm also going to be watching what's going on in the tropics, where we may get quite a bit of tropical convection as we move to the middle part of May, which is an early kind of warning sign for what may happen in July, August, September, and October. But just to show you, there is some ensemble support for a little bit drier than normal conditions here as the pattern adjusts to that trough finally leaving, but I don't think it'll last long. I think we're going to go back over to a pretty active stormy pattern for the month of May and early June, which is typical for North Carolina. All right. To finish this up, let's take a look at drought. This is the latest drought monitor. Of course, we do not have drought across the state of North Carolina, but a couple areas I'm watching will be this area and here. And the reason why is because if drought expands throughout the month of May in that area, it has a tendency to push the jet stream over to a pattern like this. And if that does occur and we get more ridging somewhere either here or there in the midsection of the country, that could change our situation here in the Carolinas such that we get a whole lot more late summer northwest flow, which could really increase our chances of seeing more severe weather later in the season. Also, under big ridges like this, tropical systems love to sneak in. So I want you to watch this with me, drought expanding in the central part of the United States. Because where it has been dry lately, look at that map in the up top middle. That's looking at vegetation health index compared to a year ago. we have already seen drier conditions causing some problems in midsection of the country, so let's watch out for it. But over in North Carolina, we're actually on this side of the spectrum, which would indicate, primarily due to the excessive amount of rain we've seen lately, things are looking pretty green. And you can look at the bottom two maps. This one's from 2020, this one's from 2019, and do some comparison here, just using the color bar that's at the bottom. So I just wanted to provide that to you. Using this, I want to give you a quick international update. We're going to talk about Europe next. We've kind of highlighted the dryness in Europe outside of the Iberian Peninsula. Over the next 10 days across Black Sea growing areas, they are expecting quite a bit of precipitation compared to normal. So that's one thing we need to be looking out for, good spring rain in that area. And then using the same technique in South America. Brazil's southern growing regions have been quite dry, so as over in Paraguay, and that's really hurt the full season crop that's growing down there, but also the second season crop that's growing down there, the safrinha crop. Where the main safrinha crop is grown, which is in the northern growing areas, we see near normal precipitation through the next week to 10 days, which was going to indicate better overall growing conditions for that crop to finish. Argentina, meanwhile, showing a little bit dry. This would mean that they could get a better chance at getting the crop they have down there harvested. Last thing I want to show you is this. You probably heard last week or over the weekend about some new reports about the locust that are in parts of Africa, the Persian Gulf and through this area, and then getting over here into Iran, Afghanistan, and Pakistan. Some of the news reports are showing up right over in this area. Just something I want to keep a very close eye on to see if this does spread at all over into India. It's quite hard to do that. It's got to get through a desert and some pretty high ground, but something that I think we need to keep an eye on, okay? So with that, I'm going to wrap it up here. I hope you all have a great week, and I look forward to giving you another update next week. Have a good one. Thank you.